right. Thank you for joining us here at Houston Oasis. I'd like to start off by highlighting one of our core values. The one I like today is be accepting and be accepted. We have a great program lined up. But right now, our main speaker today is Victor Harris. Victor has been a staple of the Bay Area poetry scene since 1999 and has been writing and performing atheist, skeptical, rational, science-themed poetry since 2007, when he's not writing or performing or DJing. Victor, what don't you do? He is the talent behind Reuschelle's Cheesecakes and won a Best of the Bay award from the East Bay Express in 2009. Again, what don't you do, Victor? But without further ado, here is Victor Harris.
Good morning, Houston Oasis. So I'm going to start off with the first poem that I wrote about atheism. It was response to a question that I'm sure we're all familiar with. If you don't believe in God, how do you decide what's good or what's just? So this is my response. It's titled Flight of the Navigator. She asked of me how I could be G-O-O-D if I do not believe in he that is supposed to be my Lord and Savior. Ask what motivating force kept me from doing my darkest desires if I did not fear the retribution of an omniscient being. But I ask of you, my friends, how many atheists have been rocked by scandal where they were the vandal upon the body of an underage child, only to have their organization deny, hide, and defend these men from the retribution due them by the laws of the land? How many secularists have practiced hypocrisy, preaching the nobility of poverty from the pulpit while living richly off the donated dollars of their impoverished flock? How many skeptic parents have kicked out their Christian children for daring to question tradition? I mean, what war was ever waged in the name of humanism? How dare religion attempt to hold morality under lock and key when their leaders can't agree on what is moral? If you want to discuss religion and morality, then let's talk about the Crusades, the Inquisition, the implicit agreement to the slave trade. Let's discuss how missionaries been footpaths for colonialism. Let's discuss Pope Pius XII's silent consent to the Nazi movement. Let's discuss religious men making Let's discuss religious men making manned missiles. Let's discuss religious men turning planes into manned missiles against the land of infidels. Let's discuss Pope Benedict XVI's proclamation that condoms promote the spread of AIDS in infected Africa. Let's discuss the papacy of Brazilian mother and doctors for performing an abortion on raped 9-year-old impregnated with twins by her stepfather, while religiously stepdaddy walks away scot-free. Let's discuss how religion keeps the masses on their asses, happy with the here and now, believing that their kingdom will come in the hereafter. Let's discuss how religion convinces people to support political parties who do not work in their own best interests. Let's discuss how religious anti-abortion advocates advocate for the assassination of doctors for performing legal, chosen, and at times necessary operations. Let's discuss religious anti-abortion advocates advocating the elimination of social programs in a world where poverty and access to resources kills more kids than abortions ever could. Let's discuss the religious anti-abortion advocates advocating for unfettered access to guns, for war, and for the death penalty. Let's discuss how religion made second-class citizens of women. Everything that goes wrong in the Bible can be traced back to a woman from the Garden of Eden on down. But you will demand of me to take the followers of faith on a case-by-case basis while practicing your prejudice towards atheists based on some preconceived notions of those who don't believe. Get to know us personally. Ask of me what motivating force keeps me from doing my darkest desires if I do not believe in the retribution of an omniscient being. Ask what motivating force keeps me. If I don't believe in an omniscient being, and I will tell you what I do believe. I believe that all of humanity is connected. That what happens half a world away may one day affect me or my two nieces. I believe that children should be taught to think critically about what they hear, what they see, and what they believe. I believe the deed done behind closed doors between two or more consenting adults is nobody's business but their own. I believe that religion is just a division perpetuated by the powers that be to keep you and me from focusing on what really matters most, just like race, just like gender, and just like sexuality. I believe that morality doesn't come from God or Allah or Yahweh or Muhammad or the Bible or the Quran or spirituality, but is instead a basic human element that allows us to further the existence of our species. I believe that all the pain and suffering I've seen in the world is not caused by an omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent being that is just testing us or can't be bothered to help, but is instead something that we can all work to eliminate. I believe that no God means the possibility of less suffering in the future. So if you dare question my morality because I don't believe, be prepared to defend yours because you do. Thank you. Another contention that we often hear from believers in regard to humanity and human form is that we're perfectly adapted to the world, that we're created in God's image, we're a demonstration of perfection. So this next poem kind of tackles that assertion, and it is titled, "Oh God, You Devil." Dear God, I want to thank you for this body you've given me, but I do have one or two issues with its layout and capabilities. I mean, if we are, as your adherents would have me believe, your favorite species, created in your image, then your imagination must have been exhausted after creating sunrises, sunsets, the ocean, its floor, and the majestic mountains. They are beautiful works of art, after all, but your imagination must have been expended after creating creatures to swim in the deep, birds to decorate the skies, and animals to populate the earth. They are awe-inspiring in every iteration, so I can only assume that your imagination was taxed when it came to creating mankind. Or perhaps the parts bin was empty, because these eyes you've endowed in me and mine are nice. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're serviceable, but they are nowhere near your best work. Sharks have clear covers to keep their eyes safe when attacking prey. The eyes of the octopus don't have the same blind spot as those of mammals, and the images aren't flipped. Hawks can see greater distances with more clarity, and insects have compound eyes that allow them to see in 6 directions at once, while we, your favorite species, stub toes in poorly lit rooms. Our rods struggling in low light situations, leaving us susceptible to injury and predation. We can only see in black and white in our periphery. Our cones can only perceive a limited number of colors in the spectrum, and our necessary nerves and veins occupy the ocular surface, leaving them vulnerable to irritation and damage by the tiniest of your insects. God, this body you've given we suffers from 1 or 2 minor deficiencies. For instance, we communicate, eat, drink, and breathe using the same faculties, which almost makes it a certainty that we will one day choke in our attempt to acquire sustenance. Did you love the dolphin and the whale more than man? Are fishes and amphibians more favored by their creator than the humble mammals from which we've descended? The circulatory and respiratory systems of insects are so simple as to almost be inspired. Did you design them early on in the process? I mean, there are more body plans for insects than there are people on this earth. Did you pen them fresh off your first cup of coffee or whatever your drug of choice may be? Because I think after seeing some of your creatures, it is safe to assume that you were on some sort of hallucinogen. And speaking of circulation and respiration, why don't we use all of the oxygen we take in? And why are we land-based animals on a planet that is 2/3 water, where the ocean, once so teeming with life that you could only see heartache and strife, your favorite creation, and so limited them to the land masses? This spine you've hung my mass on contains a curve so complex that at some point in my life, I will have back problems. Whereas if we were in the ocean, that might not be. The same can be said for hips, ankles, and knees. And dear God, why is my lifespan so short? Only doubling in the last century thanks to science-based medicine, but still falling far short of the alligator and the crocodile, the tortoise and the parrot. Do these creatures, not purported to be your favorites, have more purpose than man? And what is the purpose of cancer? Why do our cells suddenly go crazy and attempt to kill off the body that contains them? And our appendage, which was once necessary to break down such fibrous materials as grass and hardy green vegetables, is now a repository for necessary bacteria, a ticking time bomb in our abdomen. I'm running out of time, dear God, but not complaint. My party center, centrally located, is in too close proximity, at times sharing the same facilities as my sewage center, where there are no city planners up there in heaven for you to consult, where we given whatever variety plan was left laying around. Would that explain the pensions for birth defects and miscarriages? I mean, is your quality control worse than McDonald's, dear Lord? Don't answer that last question. There's no need. I only need to look at all the different religious denominations that claim to speak your truth to know the real truth. I humbly await your answer, dear God, if you can be bothered. But can you do me one favor? Keep your believers from attempting to speak for you, because they are all offering a different answer, each incompatible with the other, and attempting to disprove 6 billion ideas of you is really beginning to piss me off. Thank you. So this next poem is called Say Anything. It addresses the penchants for African Americans to be religious in some form or fashion. It's called Say Anything. It distresses me how tenaciously my people hold on to Jesus, when God, Jesus, Jehovah, and Allah never fell from the lips of our ancestors as they were trapped in the bellies of boats, bringing them across the Atlantic, raping them of the only home they ever knew. These same gods enabled our enslavers to see us as nothing but chattel, below human beings, because their holy books, falsely attributed to the hands of gods, were written by feeble-minded men who never walked more than 100 miles outside of their villages, men who had no knowledge of distant lands containing people who did not resemble them, distant lands containing people who resemble me. My ancestors were victims of a misunderstanding, victims of an arrogance that allowed men to lack even the will to hate those they enslaved, because hate is something reserved for equals, and their gods gave them domain over land and animals. So if my ancestors were only ever seen as animals in these men's eyes, then why would they waste energy hating me and my kind? My ancestors prayed to different gods who, as far as I can tell, never lifted a finger to help them, who, as far as they could tell, never lifted a finger to help them. So it only figured that they would adopt the god of their enslavers, who, as far as I can tell, has never lifted a finger to help us, has never attempted to dissuade his followers from practicing in human trafficking. In fact, a careful reading of Leviticus chapter 25, verse 44 to 46 instructs the chosen ones to buy bondsmen and bondsmaids from neighboring nations. Tells them that the offspring of these purchased people should be passed down in perpetuity, but that they should not rule over their brethren in the same manner. Well-mannered men and cultured women would attend slave auctions on Sunday afternoons fresh from church, because these were social events. Watching men, women, and children sold to the highest bidder, bitter feelings formed deep in the bellies of black men and black women as they watched their families sold away, powerless to rebel, compelled by Sunday sermon to honor their enslavers. Today's reading comes from the book of Colossians, chapter 3, verse 22, which tells you to honor those who are your earthly masters with singleness of heart, fearing the Lord. Whatever your task, work heartily. And I can hardly believe that we have shaken off the shackles of slavery and yet remain shackled so willingly to the religion of all former masters, accepting their assertions of a loving and benevolent God as they aim pistol and whip at our naked flesh, accepting their assertions of an omniscient an omnipotent God as they aim community and belonging at our raped raw feelings of being, with us refusing still to confront the notion that a God who's supposed to be compassionate and caring allowed one culture to enslave another for economic gain, that a God who is omniscient would have foresaw the downfall of the Adam and Eve, would not have given the serpent the power of speech, would not have placed temptation so easily within reach, that an all-powerful God allows atrocities to happen, that an all-powerful God allows evil to exist in a world that is inhabited by what are supposed to be his most favored creations. My ancestors prayed to different gods who, as far as I can tell, never lifted a finger to help them, who, as far as they could tell, never lifted a finger to help them. So it only figures, So it only figures that they would adopt the God of their enslavers, who, as far as I can tell, has never lifted a finger. Thank you. So now I'm going to get into some more modern work. This was written in the height of the Black Lives Matter protest. There are some people in the atheist movement that weren't necessarily happy with some of the techniques the protesters used. So this is my response to them, and it's titled Move. It used to be understood in movement atheism that it took multiple methods of engagement to reach the many versions of belief, that every style should be encouraged, even if it wasn't one you personally would employ. When they had some moderate bit of skin in the game, the white men who were then the leading voices of atheism were able to see the benefit in all forms of protest. Now, some of these same white men, being mostly cis, hetero or hetero-passing, and white, see only boundaries in the fight that others employ in attempts to defend their humanity, have identified with the oppressor that shares their skin, gender, and pigment over the oppressed, have attempted to place boundaries on how protest is to be done and in what ways it is most effective, as if protest was ever anything approved throughout history. Whitewashing movements and icons in an attempt to tell those employing what methods are available to them that those methods go too far, and still hope to claim themselves to be on the right side of history. Let's be clear, there is no middle ground when it comes to oppression. As Elie Wiesel states, neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. There is no reasoned middle ground between fascism and anti-fascism, between concentration camps and freedom, between lynching and living. You will not be required to hurl Molotov cocktails or punch Nazis or dump a milkshake, but there are millions of ways to lend your voice and your body to the fight. If you continue to poo-poo the actions of those resisting tyranny and oppression, after we're done with our direct oppressors and have a chance to breathe and reflect, you will be next. Thank you. So, in the middle of the hopefully once in a lifetime pandemic, a group of atheist organizations arranged a fundraiser to try and raise money for the unhoused, to try and get them food and whatever supplies that we could get them. And they reached out to me to ask if I could contribute. And this is the poem that I wrote for that fundraiser, and it's titled Trading Places. It used to be that we were one of many. Homo sapiens once walked the earth simultaneously with other human species. We somewhat arrogantly refer to our brand of humanity as sapient, the wise one. But it was this wisdom, this ability to adapt without genetic abnormality, to learn through observation and experimentation, that marked us as unusual, not only from the rest of the animal kingdom, but also from the rest of genus Homo. Our differences don't end there. As any middle schooler will tell you, we love to gossip. Although now seen through a negative lens, gossip, the sharing of information without evidence, enabled us to establish communities. enabled us to establish a shared set of beliefs, a necessary step for populations where interpersonal relationships are impossible. So what does it mean to be human? To be a modern person living in society? Our corporate media wants us to believe that as a society, we look out for one another, always looking to push feel-good stories of humanity. The teacher that raised money to help a student, the community that came together for a teacher's medical bills, the kid that took it on himself to raise money to pay for other students' lunches. To quote rap artist Brother Ali in his song Letter to My Countrymen, but the real picture is much more embarrassing. We're still not even close to really sharing things. The situation of oppressed people shows what we feel it means to be a human being. What does it mean to be American? Unquote. That teacher has lost 4.5% of their income, inflation adjusted over just the last decade, while their medical bills have gone up 25% over the same period. And that kid shouldn't be worrying about whether or not his friends can afford lunch, period. Richard Dawkins has a quote about the numbers of possible people who could exist, that those unborn ghosts include greater poets than Keats, scientists greater than Newton. But what if that next brilliant mind is shivering in a car with their parents? What if they're wondering where their next meal will come from? What if they're hoping that tonight they find a shelter with an open bed, a doorway that doesn't shove them on as they attempt to curl up out of the wind, the cold, the rain? What if the next brilliant mind was one of the millions who slipped from one paycheck away to being unhoused? What does it mean to be American? In our current capitalist system, it means struggle. It means competition for resources. It means working untold hours in order to keep health insurance for a company that will, upon your passing, list your job opening before your family will have the chance to list your obituary. This shared belief we were all born into doesn't have to be this way. This belief of lifting up by bootstraps has been given to us by people that make the boots. But our entire system is not natural, is not based on evidence other than that which it is created to justify our current existence. It is precariously perched on belief, and we atheists, humanists, secularists, we reasonable people have confronted belief before and seen through the morass. It is time to do it again, to see not someone who has been a part of the fall, but someone with whom we can be in community. Thank you. All right, I have a couple more poems and then we'll do the break. This next one is entitled Weird Science. It's self-explanatory. I am an amazing amalgamation of milliseconds, a compilation of coincidences, a collection of infinitely small spans of time that separates me from the possibility of my bloodline. I've managed to outswim 500 million of my brothers and sisters to be here today, continuing a chain of happenstance that began moments after the Big Bang brought the universe into being. Matter and energy cannot be created or destroyed, so the same molecules that make up me in this instance have been in existence for over 13 billion years. We are heavenly, but there is no godly hand evident in the creation of man. I can instead trace evidence of my being into the cosmos. The same elements that make me unique have been sourced to create the universe. I mean, forget Jesus. Stars died. Galaxies gave their lives to form my fingertips. How could I not find wonder in waking up? Be more amazed at each day that I exist on this earth. Sorry. I am in awe of life. To quote Carl Sagan, I find it elevating and exhilarating to discover that we live in a universe which permits the evolution of molecular machines as intricate and subtle as we. I'm left breathless by my understanding of my existence as an example of the impossible versus the improbable. Despite what some might think, this makes my life more precious, lends weight and reality to the precious actuality of each person that I allow into my life, because I see that they are an amazing amalgamation of milliseconds, a compilation of coincidences, a collection of infinitely small spans of time that separates them from the possibility of their bloodline. So I offer assistance where I'm able, compassion when I can, and a hug when life's weight proves too great for them to stand. Because these memories will be the markers of my legacy, allowing me to exist for eternity, or at least a few years past my mental exit from this planet, a few years past my physical exit from this planet, a few years past that moment in time when my atoms are reconnected with the cosmos. I live my life relaxed and happy because I know that I could be gone tomorrow. And like Stephen Hawking said, when your expectations have been reduced to zero, then you can truly appreciate everything you have. Thank you. And this last poem is something appropriate for the season. It's called Graduation Gift. I wrote it for my two nieces when they were born. They are now 10 and 11. I just gave it to them for Christmas. I gave them a printout. Favorite interaction I've ever had. It's called Graduation Gift. To my two nieces, Bryce, Elizabeth, and Riley Noel, on the occasion of your separate graduations from high school, some words of advice as you prepare to leave us to make your way in this world. This society will attempt to compartmentalize you, place you in boxes so they no longer have to consider you, be it the female box, the male box, the office worker box, or the artist box. Refuse to be boxed, because normalcy is the pursuit of the unimaginative. Be imaginary, the person the little kid in you always imagined you would be. Learn to love life like you used to. Refuse to reminisce about the joys of childhood and instead work to haul them into your everyday. Get lost in daydreams made reality. Play dates played out as your daily routine. Make friends with someone because they sat next to you. Be the kid you miss. Craft the childhood you never had a chance to experience. Be precedential. Set precedence. Do something new. Have never included in your list of attributes, like I never heard of a brother baking cheesecakes, DJing, racing cars, and writing poetry. Never met a man that managed to raise 5 kids, one temporarily by coastal on a poet's salary. Never heard of a radio personality who persistently exceeded expectations in pursuit of his dreams. Be inspirational. Shun those who would attempt to claim pride in your work without doing work of their own. Don't apologize. Be intentional in words and deeds, and you will never have to offer another phrase of remorse for the ill-conceived perceptions of others. If they don't understand you, keep talking. There are those who will. It is for them that you are sharing your voice. Never let show some respect be synonymous with shut up. Have enough respect for the strength and courage of others to tell them the uncomfortable truth, especially when they're asking for it. Life is too short to live with regret. Tomorrow may always be a day away, but death is always lurking. And society will attempt to convince you that your bucket list can be put on hold when in reality, your bucket is always with you, waiting to be kicked. It is the uncomfortable truth of our fragile existence, and one that we must all come to grips with, old and young alike. This is the only life you are guaranteed. Live like it. You are the consequence of chances of unimaginable proportions. Take some. Every person you meet is living an equally improbable life and should be treasured with each encounter. Act like it. Awake with the realization that today has the possibility to be the best day of your life, and love like it. End each day by saying there is nothing you would do differently, even when you can't recall exactly what you've done, and sleep like it. Remember that she who has the most toys still dies. Live life without clutter. Live life without fear. Live life without surplus, so that when death does finally find you, it will not find you wanting. Find eternity in memory. Turn legendary possibility into manifested reality, and never doubt that my love for you comes without condition. Thank you, Houston Oasis. Okay, so the title of this poem is Better Off Dead. I have seen the error of my ways. I am now a believer, following he who claims to be the way and the light. Born of a virgin in the last days of December, he who so loved the world that he sacrificed himself, if only temporarily, on our behalf. Yes, I am now a worshiper of Horus. Oh wait, my mistake, I meant Zoroaster, Ra, Krishna, Karna, Attis, or Mithras, because the story of Jesus, the situation behind his conception and the celebrated time of his birth, been told many times throughout history. But you probably don't believe in any of those prophets because they have faded away into anonymity despite their worshipers being just as arrogant as Christians. Cocksure that their gods were the real ones with all evidence based solely on tradition, just like Christians. The reason Christianity spread through the Western world was due to Constantine's conversion and subsequent conquering of other pagan civilizations, while continuing the Roman tradition of substituting pagan reasons for celebration with Roman Christian ones. Just look up the history of Easter or Christmas or Ash Wednesday. It's not that Christianity is any more true than the belief in Greek or Roman gods or Zoroastrianism or Hinduism or Buddhism. It's that its believers have more military power. Truth is not bound by geography, but if you look at a map of religious concentrations, belief turns out to be. Steven Weinberg said, with or without religion, you would still have good people doing good things and evil people doing evil things. But for good people to do evil things, that takes religion. The argument that atrocities done in the name of a religion is based on the perversion of its beliefs is fallacious, especially in the case of Christianity. Anyone who does so is employing the no true Scotsman fallacy, attempting to convince you that these men did not know God's will, but he does, when that cannot be true, for two reasons. He has had no more interaction with his God than those who have committed the atrocity. And in the case of Christianity, there are many examples in the Bible for God-sanctioned massacres of enemies. For instance, in Psalms chapter 137, verse 9, when God says, "Blessed is he who happily dashes babies against the rocks," is this a perversion of Christianity? Or in Joshua chapter 6, verse 1 through 24, when God entreats Joshua to bring down the walls of Jericho, to kill all the men and women of any age, save the harlot Rahab and her household, to burn the town and kill the animals. Is this a perversion of Christianity? Or Matthew chapter 10, verse 34, when Jesus says, "I did not come to bring peace, but a sword." Is this a perversion or Christianity? Or in Luke chapter 14, verse 26, when Jesus says that anyone who comes to him and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brother and sister, and also his own life cannot be a disciple of Christ. And if you consider the clergy and their scandals, or the Republicans and theirs, or your fellow churchgoers and theirs, is this a perversion or Christianity? And as far as the safety of belief, Pascal's wager says, isn't it better to believe in God and be wrong than not believe in God and be wrong? But in which God should I believe? There are thousands of gods worshipped around the world and thousands more worshipped throughout history. Even the 10 Commandments leaves open the possibility for the existence of other deities, with the first commandment being, "Thou shalt have no other God before me." But I digress, because common African-American wisdom tells me that it has to be the God of Christianity. But with over 3,000 splinters, which sect should I choose? With each believing that it alone has the correct interpretations of the gospel. Christopher Hitchens said that the fact that all religions cannot be correct, the only safe assumption is that they must all be wrong. But perhaps you are not as familiar with atheist philosophers as myself, who do not hold them in such high regard, so I will put it in the terms of someone with whom you will be more familiar. Homer said, and that's Simpson, not the ancient Greek poet. Homer said, "Suppose we've chosen the wrong God. Every time we go to church, we're just making him madder and madder." Have you even considered other religions? Study their traditions and rationally and logically dismiss their beliefs based on reason? Or have you simply done what most people do? Accepted the religion of your parents based on authority and tradition? To quote Stephen Roberts, "I contend that we are both atheists. I simply take it one God further. And when you understand why you've dismissed all other gods, you will understand why I dismiss yours." Thank you.
Thank you so much, Victor. And we appreciate you being here today. So,
It's been my pleasure.
We're going to have one more song from Kory Quinn and Wayne Wilkerson. But before that, we have a few upcoming events. Wednesday, June 7th, 7 to 9 p.m., we have Houston Oasis cards. Due to limited space, RSVP is required, so contact Richard about that. Saturday, June 10th, we have a volunteer event at the food bank from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. And Wednesday, July 5th, 7 to 9 p.m. is our Oasis book club. For more information on that, contact Will Judy. So without further ado, we're going to hear from Kory Quinn and Wayne Wilkerson.
Keep staring at the light in the window. Left out in the cold like a weeping willow. Her ma, she don't like me none, and I ain't gonna go till this fight is won. Stand my ground in the war on love. I will write letters to her from afar. In tender words from the heart. A stretch of absence is hell on earth, and I only got a yearning for that girl. Right my ways in the war on love. I can't believe that I'm gonna lose the war on love. I will keep this collection of memories close to my chest like a treasury. It won't be spent, for I'll stay connected content, even though her loss never torments me. The day I lost the war on love, I'll keep fighting as long as there's a chance. Even when distance extends to expanse, and man alive, if hope's a flame, I'll stake my